What's going on, my fellow A-plusers? Welcome back once again to a brand new episode right here on our YouTube page, A+ Hero Report. Also going live on our Facebook page. It is I, your host with the most, Adam Perez, back here once again to get into our weekly episode reviews of The Mandalorian. Listen, I know every weekend, my weekends start off great with talking about Power Rangers on a Saturday, but I got to be honest with you. To wrap up my week on a Friday, there's nothing like a brand new episode of The Mandalorian to go ahead and kick off your weekend the correct way. I got to be honest. I went into this episode this week. This was chapter 14. I honestly expected this to be a Jon Favreau directed episode, but was pleasantly surprised to come to find out that it was in fact directed by Robert Rodriguez himself. Most notably from his time with Spy Kids. He did a ton of machete stuff from Dusk Till Dawn, the movie and the series. What else has Alita Battle Angel he directed? I mean, his filmography list just continues to grow and grow and grow. He's done some amazing things over his career. So to see him tackle Star Wars was certainly fun in and of itself. And honestly, regardless of the fact that this episode was 33 minutes long, 32 minutes long. I believe they mentioned that this was actually the shortest Mandalorian episode this season, at least. Regardless of however much time Robert Rodriguez certainly had to work with in here, they did a ton in this episode. Great action, great lore, great character stuff, character building. I mean, it was everything that you could ask for within a 30-minute time span, to be quite honest with you. So we're definitely going to go ahead and get into all of that, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much for certainly joining me today. And of course, listen, if you've got any comments, if you've gotten anything that you certainly want to say about this particular week's episode, certainly feel free to let your voice be heard, because as always, these are just my A+ opinions. But at the end of the day, I want to know yours. So please let me know your thoughts on this week's episode of The Mandalorian as we get into season 2, chapter 14, titled The Tragedy. And really the only tragedy, if you ask me, out of here, besides, again, this is going to be spoilerish, just so you guys know, again, when we discuss Mandalorian episodes, we dive deep, okay? We talk a little bit about everything. So if you haven't watched this week's episode, just earmuffs right now. But the only tragedy that I wind up finding in here, besides the capturing of Grogu, if you will, the destruction of the Razor Crest. I was so crushed. I was going to say butthurt. I was so hurt at the idea of the Razor Crest not making it out of this season. I honestly thought that this was a ship that we were going to stick with for the entirety of this series, to be perfectly honest with you, right? Like, for me, the Razor Crest is one of those ships that has fully, I guess you could say, put itself in sort of the lore of famous ships when it comes to Star Wars stuff, right? The Millennium Falcon, the Star Destroyers, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and of course Razor Crest, right? I feel like you got to put it into that category. So to see the Razor Crest destroyed this week, man, pulled at my heartstrings. So I feel like that was probably the true tragedy of this week's episode. But guys, before we even get into the review and start breaking some things down for you, I do want to let you know a couple things. Listen, if you do have a live viewer question that you certainly want to go ahead and ask me, whether it be Star Wars related, The Mandalorian related, or something for our weekly episodes of A+ Hero Report that goes live every Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. If you have any live viewer questions, feel free to send them over at any time at aplusopinions@gmail.com. And of course, if it's in regards to The Mandalorian, we'll always get to them towards the end of our Mandalorian reviews. And then any other questions that you might have, we'll certainly focus on A+ Hero Report. So remember, aplusopinions@gmail.com. Submit any of your particular live questions. And if you want to go ahead and continue actually supporting our channels, guys, we actually did just go ahead and start a Patreon. That's right. We did go ahead and start a Patreon account, patreon.com/aplusopinions. We've got some great exclusives along with some early access, not only for A+ More Phenomenal, but for A+ Hero Report as well. We literally just launched it, I think maybe in the middle of this week or so. So once we actually start getting some patrons, we'll start throwing out some of the exclusives out there for you guys. So definitely go ahead and show your support for our channel if you would certainly like to, because we definitely are in the process of trying to continue to grow our channel as much as we possibly can, especially since we moved over from A+ Opinions over to our YouTube channel and A+ Hero Report. support, guys. So definitely go ahead and show your support at any particular time. But other than that, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. What's up, Jonathan? Yo, this episode was hype, says Jonathan. You're absolutely right, man. Jon Favreau and Robert Rodriguez teaming up today in what was a stellar episode. A stellar episode for an episode that was only 33 minutes long. So let's go ahead and jump into it, man. This the first part of this episode, just the intro alone, I find myself really enjoying. Like, there's something great about seeing Din's reaction to now knowing Grogu's name. You know, one of the cute, adorable factors, I should say, when it comes to Baby Yoda, if you will, in the previous episode when Ahsoka actually referenced who he was by his actual name. I love that anytime you get the opportunity to see Mando calling Grogu, I love just the cute little noise he makes as he winds up capturing his attention. I saw a lot of people on Twitter all week long kind of highlighting that on their feeds. So to kind of see the show itself kind of acknowledge something as adorable as that, I thought was absolutely perfect. And to be honest with you, it is one of those early scenes here for the intro of this episode that continues to show the bond between Din along with Grogu and how much it's actually growing. Like, if you ask me, that little monologue or dialogue that Mando wind up having with Grogu about, you know, hopefully when we get you to Tython, you know, you'll be able to do your work and hopefully reach out to some Jedi and eventually go on, you know, leave with them and become, you know, very skilled in whatever case may be. It almost felt like, and he even says, you know, I hope you understand that, right? Almost like he's trying to convince Grogu that he has to separate himself from Din. But if you ask me, it felt more like Mando was trying to convince himself, right? Like, he's almost like he's gotten so attached to Grogu that he even knows that this potential split is going to be something really impactful and really emotional for him. I mean, seeing his growth, seeing Grogu continue to learn and train, if you will, right? Seeing Din give Grogu some praise and whatnot. Like, there is a fatherly bond that's certainly growing between these two. And I just thought it was interesting seeing Din trying to explain these things to Grogu to try and get him ready for that next sort of big step in his life of that separation, that it felt very much like it was almost like Din trying to convince himself that things were going to be okay, that this separation was eventually going to happen, and that you got to suck it up, man. You got to suck it up. So, hey, what's up, Georgette, aka my mom? Good to see you pop in here. She says yes, very much so. Trying to convince himself. He definitely has a bond. Yeah, that's definitely what I was trying to. That's definitely what I was getting from that particular moment, also. So, you know, whether or not we get that moment, who certainly knows, right? Who's going to show up for Grogu over at Tython is really what the next big question is. Even though they've departed and they're no longer on this planet, make no mistake, Grogu did send out that signal. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe there's a post-credit scene towards the end of this season where we actually see a Jedi actually show up. Who could it be, right? Luke? Could it be Cal Kestis? Could it be I don't want to say forgotten, but maybe a battered and beaten Mace Windu, right? Maybe Ezra. The possibilities are out there. There's not many Jedi that are certainly around during this time, but I would love to see a Jedi pop up at some particular time on that planet that they wind up going to in this episode. So we'll see what happens. A part of me still has as much as I would love to see somebody like a Luke show up, or even Cal. I think those are probably my two suggestions. If I had to just make a leap here, I honestly don't think Grogu's going anywhere. Like, I really would. Like, wouldn't it be kind of cool to see like, for me in my head, I just keep thinking of Grogu in bounty hunter armor, using his force abilities, but also raised by a Mandalore as a bounty hunter. I just think that's like a really cool mixture of something that we haven't really seen before, especially when it comes to like a Yoda species, if you will. But that's just my speculation and throwing things out there. So I personally would like to see these two stick together and Grogu turn up to be something else. But if there is a Jedi that stops by, give me Luke or give me Cal. But I'm kind of curious to know who you guys would certainly like to see. So yeah, we did get the opportunity to see Mandalorian get to Tython here. Another great location. That's the one thing I loved about season 2 so far, is that we've only been on Tatooine once. I feel like maybe one sand planet this entire season. So that's always great for me to be able to get the opportunity to see brand new locations. So I'm glad we got the opportunity to do that. But during this waiting for Baby Yoda, I need to correct myself here. It's not Baby Yoda. It's Grogu, Adam. It's Grogu. Get it right. So so we see Grogu reaching out into his the Seeing Stone, if you will. But in the process of doing so, Mandalorian's got a ton of company here. I did not expect this, to say the least. I mean, we knew that Moff Gideon has the Razor Trek tracked, so I was definitely expecting an ambush at some particular point in time. What I was not expecting was a surprise appearance of none other than Slave One flying through the sky. I was like, he's still got a ship. Like I had no idea what happened to the Slave One, but I think it's awesome that it wind up popping up here, to be honest with you. And trust me when I say Boba Fett did not come alone, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, he wind up bringing Fennec. If you remember from season 1, was only in an episode one time, but played none other by the magnificent Ming-Na from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you recall. So Fennec was in fact back teaming up with Boba Fett. Apparently Boba was in fact the footsteps that we saw mysteriously at the end of that episode, wind up picking up Fennec and bringing her back to life, if you will, fixing her up. I think she even showcased like cybernetic parts or android parts or whatever the case may be. But I think it's a match made in heaven, to be honest with you, because those two put in work this episode. I felt bad for these stormtroopers. But then again, considering the fact that there's like 20 of them and none of them are hitting their shots, yet we've got Boba and Fennec just picking these people off one at a time, I honestly thought it was brilliant. So give it up to Robert Rodriguez for some amazing action, to be perfectly honest with you. But the reason why Boba's there is because he clearly wants his Boba Fett armor back, pretty much in exchange for the safety of the child. We did have ourselves a little bit of a standoff between these two, but I do love to get the opportunity to see Boba showcase his abilities in here, right? Like Boba Fett has always been one of those characters that have been shrouded in such mystery that it's pretty cool to finally see him in action, if you will, right? I mean, we get to see him a little bit in Return of the Jedi, but it was like super brief, right? And then an ill fate for the gentleman, unfortunately. So to be able to see a returning Tamora Morrison once again, I don't want to say in his prime, because Boba's been through some shit. You can clearly see it on his face, the scars, everything. But to see Tamora Morrison putting on the armor, finding what he was looking for, and showing just the skills that follow him, man, unbelievable stuff. Just seeing him single-handedly take down some of these stormtroopers, and of course using his rocket pack to take down both of the transport ships towards the end. Also, I love Mando comes along, like great shot. I was actually aiming for the other one, but took two birds out with one stone. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And did you guys check out his rocket launchers on his knee pads? Like, you got to, Din, we got to get you an upgrade. We got to get you an upgrade, man. Your Beskar steel armor looks great, but you're no Boba Fett until you've got rocket launchers on your knee pad. So we got to work on that for sure. But it was great seeing him in action. That Tusken club of his just smashing dudes, like just killing some of the stormtroopers' armors and stuff. They really went. I want to say this is probably, while we certainly saw no blood here, I definitely feel as though Robert Rodriguez tried to push that envelope in, at least giving us just violent interactions. You know what I mean? Like the action was just violent, from boulders running over people. I love the shot of Boba Fett like uppercutting somebody in the stomach and then launching like a missile or a gun, and the guy like he shoots it and the guy just flies across the screen. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Just some of the action that Boba was certainly dishing out to everybody. But yeah, big props to Boba along with Fennec here in this episode. And we also continuing along with the idea of building Star Wars lore. One of the things that we have in fact solidified in here is that Jango Fett is not a Mandalorian. He, just like Mando or Din Djarin, is in fact a foundling, somebody that was certainly brought into sort of that culture and race and sort of raised through there. Now, clearly he did live on Mandalore for a while. I think they mentioned the idea that he took part in the Mandalorian Civil War that wind up happening. So clearly something happened in the Civil War that wind up eventually Jango wind up leaving to go live on Camino, whatever the case may be. So I am glad that we finally have the answers, because I feel like the idea of Boba being a true Mandalorian, I think, has kind of been confusing for some people. I think some people are under the impression that Boba's a Mandalorian, which he certainly isn't, and neither is his father Jango. So I'm glad that they went ahead and actually clarified it for us here, that Jango is in fact a foundling, not a true Mandalorian. But clearly, like Din Djarin, even though you are just a foundling, this is the way, right? There is a code to certainly live by when it comes to the Mandalorian culture, and they certainly have done so. So kudos to just Jon Favreau again, and just some of the amazing writing work that he's doing here, and continuing to grow sort of this Star Wars lore, if you will. But I also want to talk a little bit about Moff Gideon also, because Giancarlo Esposito, if he's in an episode, it's almost sacrilegious to not talk about Giancarlo Esposito because he's so damn good in everything that he certainly does. But he manages to track down the child, winds up sending in his dark troopers, as he actually refers to them as, to go ahead and collect Grogu from the planet itself. I'm assuming at this point that they are not Force capable yet. I'm assuming that that is one of the, or at least part of the experimentations that Moff Gideon is certainly doing. And I'm sure now that he does have the asset in his grasps, they're probably going to start doing some experimentation as soon as they possibly can. So I'm under the impression that they're going to take the Grogu samples and wind up trying to give Force abilities to these particular Dark Troopers. If that is the case, going back to some of the old school extended universe or like Legends canon stuff from the old Star Wars books, if you will. So leave it up to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to really pick some of those old school storylines from back in the day to go ahead and make more modern and actually canon, which is certainly important. So just the incredible confrontation between Moff Gideon along with the child, him showcasing the dark saber in front of him. Like I literally was worried. I'm like, is he gonna hurt him? Put the lightsaber away, please. Like poor baby. Jesus Christ, Adam. I keep saying baby Yoda. Poor Grogu was trying to reach for this freaking dark saber, but I can't wait to see what this confrontation is going to be like, to be quite honest with you. If anything, I am starting to worry a little bit more about the child. I don't know if you guys are or not, but just something that Ahsoka mentioned in the previous episode about how, you know, baby Yoda, Grogu is so attached that with attachment usually comes fear, and with fear comes hatred, and of course yada yada yada, you know exactly where that leads to, sort of thing. So to see Grogu in this episode towards the end, like force choking some of these stormtroopers, which is a great scene, mind you. I love seeing I love seeing Grogu when he uses his abilities, but from the force choking to the throwing the stormtroopers around, I'm thinking to myself, like, I really hope that this isn't scarring this poor child so that later on down the road his life ends up becoming more difficult than it already is. I mean, the kid is already scared. He already has fear and attachment as a part of him, right? I certainly don't want him to have to experience loss. I mean, can you imagine if he has to experience loss? The idea of him being separated from Mando, like I'm really worried about the trajectory of the child, and certainly where it comes from, or where it's going, at least its future. Maybe the idea of it having been raised at the temple on Coruscant for a while, maybe it has given itself sort of that foundation and those fundamentals to not get to that part. But if that's something that's even a red flag for Ahsoka and makes her worry, who knows where the trajectory of Grogu's future is certainly going to be. But I'm fascinated by it. So this scene made me worried, but we'll see what happens towards the end of this series going forward. But we already said farewell to the Razor Crest. I got to wipe my tear away. I'm going to miss that ship, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not a model collector, but I may try and get me a model or like a Lego set of the Razor Crest and kind of put it together for myself, man. I really am looking forward to it. But a couple honorable mentions before we go ahead and wrap up in here. The Empire is back, according to Boba Fett, as he tries to go ahead and track down the child, tries to get it back from the Dark Troopers. He goes up into the atmosphere to realize Moff Gideon's light cruiser is there. If you guys recall, this season takes place, or this series, I should say, takes place about 5 years after Return of the Jedi, right? So we definitely are living very much in the world where, while the overarching power of the Empire has certainly crumbled, especially a lot in the inner worlds, it's definitely more or less on the outer rims where you could probably see remnants of the Empire still trying to seize onto control and maybe even try and grow the Empire again from their particular point of view. So now, whether or not Moff Gideon is doing all of this for, say, Palpatine in in secret, right? Or if he's doing this all for his own intentional, like his own personal motives, so that he can grow in power. Who certainly knows? But trust me when I say, at this particular point in time, for Boba to say the Empire is back, maybe not fully, but the Empire certainly is still lurking out there and definitely has plans. And it seems as though Moff Gideon is certainly trying to do just that. And of course, the last honorable mention goes to Marshall Dune, or I should say Cara Dune. That's Marshall Dune if you're nasty. But it is one of those things, like, I love the fact that we came back to her. Even though we didn't see Gina Carano all episode long, I love the fact that the epilogue in here, it feels very much like Mando trying to get the band back together. She clearly held on to that Marshall badge that was handed to her by the X-Wing fighter a couple of episodes ago. I wasn't sure if that's what that was, but considering the fact that they've considered her the Marshal, I thought it was pretty cool that they would give her a badge. So I'm glad that she wound up sticking around and holding on to it. But what's interesting to me is that we see Din in here inquiring about Mayfield, which is one of the people he ran with in the previous season. If you guys recall, I can't remember what episode that was, but I believe they went to go ahead and rescue one of their comrades out of I think it was a New Republic prison ship or something like that. Well, Mayfield, played by Ben Burr, if I'm not mistaken, the comedian, homeboy's got the extra guns out of his backpack and things like that, so Din is clearly trying to look for him. So it seems as though I'm getting the impression, at least, that Din Djarin is trying to formulate sort of a band of misfits, if you will. Let's go ahead and get Grief in here. Let's get Cara Dune in here. We'll get Mayfield. We've got Fennec. We've got Boba Fett. We've got Mando. Come on. I mean, talk about a team, right? Like, if you are going to go ahead and try and save the child and probably run roughshod all over a light cruiser from the Empire, that's the team that I certainly want going to war with me. So I cannot wait to see what they have up their sleeve. If IG-88, the bounty hunter, was still around, I'd say pick him up too if you could. But I certainly don't think that's about to happen. But what is going to happen, I'm not quite sure. And I'm not even sure how many episodes we have left in this season, but I feel like we're getting to the end. I'm under the impression that we were at like 8 episodes, but I'm crossing my fingers that maybe we'll get more. So if anything, I would assume that probably how do you pronounce this director's name? I can never get this. Rick Fukuyama? No, I don't think that's way too simple. Hold on. Let me see if I can find his name. Star Wars, Rick Famuyiwa. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Rick Famuyiwa. I believe he has an episode this season that he will be directing. And considering the fact that he also directed the episode with the prison transport, I wouldn't be surprised if seeing Mando try and rescue or break out Mayfield. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a Rick Famuyiwa episode. I'm totally butchering this guy's name. I'm not trying to, I promise. But I feel like that's probably going to be a Rick episode. And we'll see how many episodes we certainly have left. But you tell me, Mando and a bunch of man-fits raiding Moff Gideon ship, certainly count me in, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm crossing my fingers for an epilogue on Tython of a mysterious Jedi eventually arriving at some point in time. But again, I definitely want to know your thoughts. But other than that, guys, excellent episode all around. Can't wait to next week. Certainly can't get here soon enough if you ask me, guys. But again, these are just my A+ opinions. At the end of the day, though, I definitely want to go ahead and know yours. So please let me know your thoughts in the live chat or the comment section box below, ladies and gentlemen. And with that out of the way, I think we're going to go ahead and actually get into some comments from you guys. Let's see here what you guys said. Gabriel, what I was not expecting was to see Ming-Na come back. She only appeared in one episode last season, and I felt she was underused. So it was cool to see her again. I completely agree with you, Gabriel. Like, for me, I was not expecting her at all. I think they did a great job of keeping that pretty secret, honestly. But the fact that you get to see Fennec in all her glory and how great of a sharpshooter she is, yeah, bring her on board for this mission anytime. Jonathan says the first time you drop off your kid at school is tough. Yeah, let alone having to go on a space adventure, right? And then eventually have to separate. So yeah, I feel you there, Jonathan. Even though I don't have a kid, I know you certainly do, man. So I'm sure you're probably feeling some Mando vibes yourself there. Gabriel says at the end of the episode when Grogu gets captured, I was expecting a twist where we find out that Moff Gideon was a Force user as well when he was showing Grogu the dark saber. Oh, that would have been an interesting twist for sure. I'm still very much on the idea that Moff Gideon maybe was a former Mandalorian himself. Maybe he had some sort of past living on Mandalore. Maybe he was part of the Purge or the Civil War, whatever the case may be. I'm assuming maybe out of the Purge, that's where he got the dark saber from. So I really want to see what his history is with the Mandalores in general. But you never know, Gabriel. You never know. Stuart, what's up, buddy? Good to see you coming through. He says, I still find it funny that the dude whose movies are filmed in front of a green screen 90% of the time directs the episode with the least amount of green screen. Talking about Robert Rodriguez, and a hell of a job he did too without green screen, to be honest with you. Yeah, he really impressed me this week. I might have to go on a binge of some Robert Rodriguez movies now, honestly. Jeff, no one gives a. What's up, Jeff? He says, hey, how people don't notice the clear comparisons and understanding expressed by Boba's face looking Din, who just lost everything, like he recollected on how he lost everything when his father died. Oh, recollected. I'm sorry. I can't read today. Hey, how people don't notice the clear compassion and understanding expressed by Boba's face looking Din, who just lost everything, like he recollected on how he lost everything. I love that you bring that up, honestly, Jeff. You're absolutely right. There are some great moments and just some great just still shots on Boba and his facial expressions, especially when it comes to talking to the Mandalorian or even seeing his poor Razor Crest kind of gone out of the way. You know what I mean? Based off of just Boba's past, his history, especially from the prequels, and just who knows what the guy's been up to since he fell into the Sarlacc pit. You bring up a great point, Jeff. So thank you very much for that, man. Stuart says Dark Troopers are canon. Absolutely. Finally, right? Gabriel says a minor nitpick for me was when Boba said that the armor was Jango's, because if I remember correctly, Jango's armor was silver and blue, while Boba's is red and orange, so it can't be Jango's armor. Well, I think I think just going into what Jeff says here, I believe he just kind of repainted over it. I believe because he does, if you recall from Attack of the Clones, like if you're just not talking about the Clone Wars animated series, last time I saw Boba in the movies, at least, he was certainly holding on to his father's helmet, if you will. So I just assumed that he grabbed Jango's armor and took it with him. So it would make sense if he actually repainted it. Jeff also says in the CW TV series, in one of the cut episodes, there's an episode where young Boba in CW TV. Also, any of you feel like Din isn't really that impressive at combat compared to Boba and the Owls, etc.? He feels slower in relying more on his armor than his combat skills. Well, for this, I will say I do think that Boba's probably more experienced. So I'm not expecting Din at any point in time to one up Boba. I think Boba just has a ton more experience. And you say Bo-Katan also. Yeah, I definitely would agree with you there. But let's not sleep on Din. I definitely do think Din can certainly hold himself. If you recall from the season finale, I believe, of season 1, when he's on Navarro, homeboy literally comes out of the bar and just starts like just putting the hammer down on a bunch of people. So the guy definitely has abilities for sure. I'm not going to sleep on Din. I mean, maybe he does rely a little bit more on his armor at times, right? He loves that rocket launcher, if you will. But yeah, if I had to say, I would definitely think Bo-Katan and Boba have probably been through more combat, bigger scales in combat, if you will, than probably Din. Gabriel says, this is messed up, but if you watch Django's death scene in episode 2 where he dies, if you notice a shadow after his head is cut off, you can see the shadow of his head flying out of the helmet. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see that. It happened so briefly. I remember I missed it at first, but I think this was years ago. I remember seeing an actual slow down clip of that, a slowed down version of that clip, and you can clearly see the shadow of Django's head flying out of the helmet. Crazy stuff. Gabriel says, do you think that Grogu's arc will conclude after this season, or do you think that the entire series will revolve around this arc and end at the end of the series finale? I have a feeling that it's going to revolve around this arc and end at the end of the series finale. I don't know how many seasons of The Mandalorian we're getting, though. You know, are we getting 3? Are we getting 4? I really don't know. But I do think that his arc is going to continue. He's just become such a big pivotal role. Like, for me, it would be odd that if this season continued on to, say, 5 seasons and Grogu left after 3, it would feel a little bit strange. It would feel a little bit strange. I mean, maybe he leaves and then he comes back, right? They meet up again somehow. Who certainly knows? But I'm under the impression it's probably going to last the entirety of this season. I mean, a Jedi may pop up at the end of this season, and then maybe we get a Jedi in season 3, right? Who knows? Who knows, Gabriel? But I have a feeling it's going to last the entirety. But I could be wrong. Let's see here. Jeff says, also more into theory crafting. I suspect at the end of the season, Bo-Katan and her night owls will meet with Din before they attack Moff Gideon, as we know she is hunting him for the Darksaber. Oh, that would be interesting, Jeff, because then considering just the band of misfits I already kind of put together, Mayfield, Grief, Kara, or Marshall doing if you're nasty, and then you've got Fennec and Boba and Mando, but then you want to throw in Bo-Katan and her 2 other night owls with her. I'm there, Jeff. You sold me, man. You sold me. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I would certainly love for that to happen. I mean, I love me some Katie Sackhoff to begin with. So yes, certainly go ahead and bring it on. But other than that, guys, I think that's probably going to be it for today. So thank you very much, everybody, for being active today with your comments and your questions and things like that. I certainly do appreciate it. And remember, guys, listen, at any particular point in time, if you do have a live viewer question that you certainly want to make sure gets answered towards the end of this episode, feel free to go ahead and submit your live viewer questions over to us at aplusopinions@gmail.com, just to make sure that your comment does any questions. Feel free to send them out at any particular time during the week. And of course, if you definitely want to go ahead and continue to support the channel, you certainly can. www.patreon.com/aplusopinions, ladies and gentlemen. We are working to not only bring other people in, but also to grow our production value for the show here, new equipment and things like that. So we are looking to expand A Plus Hero Report, and along with our other channel, A Plus More Phenomenal as well, ladies and gentlemen. So please go ahead and show your support for the channel if you love our content. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for me here today. So thank you very much for everybody who certainly joined us. And of course, we certainly will be back next weekend, or next Friday, I should say, with a brand new episode going live at 7 o'clock Central Time. So certainly join us then. But until next time, do me a big favor, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you later, and may the force be with you. Bye.